Federal authorities have charged a large number of wealthy elites with bribing, lying, and cheating their way into top-notch universities in a scam going back approximately 250 years. U.S. Attorney Sam Gullible says the FBI became suspicious when they realized that many supposedly educated elites didn't have the faintest idea what they were doing, and despite their fancy clothes and overwhelming self-certainty, were basically as stupid as blocks of wood. In announcing the charges to a barroom full of former FBI officials, Attorney Gullible said, quote, "All this time, we in the deep state have been breaking every rule of law and decency to keep credentialed elites in power. And it turns out the credentialed elites had already broken every rule of law and decency just to become credentialed elites. As a federal officer, it almost makes me feel a little guilty about all that Trump-Russia stuff we made up," unquote. Among the charges leveled at the elites are accusations that they gamed the system to get undeserving elite students into places that had been reserved for undeserving minorities. Special Agent Lance Clueless told reporters, quote, "Instead of coveted places at high-profile schools going to someone like Elizabeth Warren, they could have gone to some dopey Native American who didn't deserve them just as much as she didn't," unquote. According to the indictment, one mother convinced her son to pretend to be gay in order to get into Yale. The crying young man told agents, quote, "I kept telling her, Mom, I don't want to commit sodomy, but she said, 'You're Asian, damn it. Sodomy is the only way you'll ever get into a good school.' Let me tell you, it was nowhere near as much fun as it looked in the pornography she made me watch," unquote. Agent Clueless told reporters, quote, "Exposing the corruption and dishonesty of undeserving elites could lessen America's trust in elites if America had any trust in elites, but as things are, it shouldn't make much difference." Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shaped, tipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
You know, one of the biggest pitfalls of the commentary game is the temptation to make sweeping generalizations about every individual event. It's very easy to see any given story as confirming your disgruntlement with some social change you don't like, or some new technology you find threatening, or some philosophy you disagree with. It's easy to look at this new scandal in which wealthy elites are charged with committing fraud to get their kids into good schools and talk about the corruption at the top of America or the unfairness of the world. And I will talk about some of those things today. But more than anything, I couldn't help thinking when I heard this story what lousy, lousy parents these people were. Did I mention they were lousy parents? They were lousy parents. I put a kid through Yale. He wanted to get into that school so badly, it obsessed him. He worked like a dog. He did everything right. He did all the extracurricular stuff. He got the grades, everything. I was kind of relaxed about the whole thing. The annoying little punk was a genius, so I figured he'd get into some good school somewhere, whether it was Yale or someplace else. But a certain other parent he had, who shall remain nameless, loved that kid so much she would have done anything to help him get what he wanted. Anything except cheat, lie, and steal. Why? Because she loved him so much, she was willing to not cheat and not lie and not steal to demonstrate to him and teach him the best way to walk through the world as a man, whether he got the first thing he wanted or not. I don't know if this story makes a big point about our society as a whole, but I do know this. Being a parent has a point. Going to school has a point. Working a job has a point. When you forget that, when you act only for the success, only for the money or the power or the fame, you've forgotten everything that matters. This story really gets me, and we'll talk about it more. But first, let us talk about 23andMe. I really like 23andMe. I did it because it was just fun. It was just fun to find out who you are, a little bit more about who you are by finding out what's in your DNA. 23andMe allows you to go beyond ancestry to access more personalized insights about you based on your DNA. With more than 125 genetic reports, you can gain insights about your health, traits, and more. And more. I found out, for instance, that I am the resurrected body of the pharaoh Amenhotep, doomed to kill and kill until I find the bride who was stolen from me through eternity. I just made that up. But you can also find out things like, does alcohol turn your cheeks pink as a glass of rosé? You may have the alcohol flush reaction. Saturated fat and weight report can tell you about how your genetics may impact your body's response to your diet. See what your genes can say about your health traits and more. Buy your health and ancestry service kit today at 23andme.com/Klavan. That's the number 23andme.com/Klavan. Again, that's 23andme.com/Klavan. You can find out a lot of things. Like, how do you spell Klavan? It's Klavan. All right, we got the mailbag today. We'll solve, we'll solve all your problems for the lousy $10 a month it costs to subscribe, $100 for the entire year. Let's talk about this. This is an amazing story. It really is. About 50 people were charged in a scheme to buy spots in freshman classes at Yale, Stanford, other big name schools. Basically, they used this consultant guy named William Singer, who had a place called the Edge College and Career Network, but really what it was also known as the Key, and he would funnel money to coaches and to people, proctors at exams, and they would use these things to get their kids into school. And they got tapes of them. They got Singer talking to people. It's tapes of the parents, these elite parents, explaining, these were people with a lot of money, but money wasn't the only thing they cared about. Here's one of the tapes.
Yeah, money's all right, but it ain't everything. Now, be somebody. Look hard at a bunch of guys and know that they'll do anything you tell them. Have your own way or nothing. Be somebody.
Yeah, see? All right. These elegant people, they acted like thugs. They acted like gangsters. Some of them were famous. Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin. Huffman's a good actress. She was in Sex and the City. Big Clinton supporter. And she's married to William Macy from, Fargo and Shameless. He was not indicted, though they did catch him in a phone call talking with Felicity Huffman and this guy Singer, talking about whether they wanted to use this service, this fraudulent service for their younger daughter after they'd used it for their older daughter. They ultimately decided not to. I don't know if that's why they didn't indict Macy too, but he was, obviously aware of what was going on with this stuff. And the other is Loughlin. She's from Full House and Fuller House, and she's married to the fashion designer Massimo Giannulli, who was also indicted. Let's hear the U.S. Attorney from Massachusetts, Andrew Lelling, talking about who these people were. This is cut number 3.
These parents are a catalog of wealth and privilege. They include, for example, CEOs of private and public companies, successful securities and real estate investors, 2 well-known actresses, a famous fashion designer, and the co-chairman of a global law firm. Based on the charges unsealed today, all of them knowingly conspired with Singer and others to help their children either cheat on the SAT or ACT and or buy their children's admission to elite schools through fraud. Singer's clients paid him anywhere between $100,000 and $6.5 million for this service, though the majority paid between $250,000 and $400,000 per student. This case is about the widening corruption of elite college admissions through the steady application of wealth combined with fraud. There can be no separate college admissions system for the wealthy, and I'll add that there will not be a separate criminal justice system either.
So these people are in real trouble. One of my favorite stories from this is Felicity Huffman following Singer's instructions. Felicity Huffman had her daughter seek permission to get extra time on the SAT, which is an option available to students with learning disabilities. So basically pretending her daughter had a learning disability. And once she received the permission, Mr. Singer instructed Ms. Huffman to have her daughter take the test in December of 2017 with a proctor who was in on the scheme. So he was going to help her out. But then it appeared that a different proctor from her daughter's own high school would be involved. And Ms. Huffman emailed Mr. Singer, Rutro, her high school wants to use their own proctor. I mean, the morality here was kind of a little bit missing. The Laura Loughlin, who the other actress, her daughter is like an Instagram star. This is not something I know that much about. Olivia J. Giannulli has over 1 million followers on Instagram, and she got into school pretending she was on crew by taking a phony picture of her with a rowing machine. One of these guys was a Gordon Kaplan, co-chairman at law firm Wilkie Farr and Gallagher, whose daughter was going to college, and he was explaining, Singer was explaining to him how the service works. And Singer said there's a front door, which means you get in on your own. The back door is through institutional advancement, which is 10 times as much money. And I've created this side door. And Kaplan says to him, to be honest, I'm not worried about the moral issue here. I'm worried about if she gets caught doing that, she's finished. If somebody catches this, what happens? Mr. Kaplan asked Mr. Singer, who said that no one would get caught if he kept his mouth shut. Here is Lelling talking about some of the things they did. I mean, it's just amazing, some of the things that they did. Just remember, when you're doing, it's unclear how many of these kids knew what was going on. It is unclear if the kids themselves knew what was going on, but some of them were posing for pictures. Some of the pictures were Photoshopped. But if they knew, and now that they have found out, I mean, what have these parents taught their kids? What have they taught them? It is an amazing, amazing thing that they would do this. Let's hear Lelling describe some of the scams. This is cut number 5.
To facilitate the scam, Singer counseled parents to take their children to a therapist and get a letter saying that because of purported learning disabilities or other issues, the child needed additional time to complete the ACT or the SAT. Once the companies that administer those exams had agreed to the extra time, Singer arranged for the child to take the exam individually with one of the proctors he had bribed, or one of the administrators he had bribed, either at a location in Houston or a location in California. Beyond the SAT and ACT scam, parents also paid Singer money that he then used to bribe coaches and administrators to designate their children as recruited athletes for various schools. In return for bribes, coaches would use slots that their schools had allocated to them.
So I'll go back. So you're calling your kid disabled, basically, so they can get more time on the SATs. They're having proctors fix the SAT scores. And the New York Times, a former newspaper, had article after article saying, don't you think for a minute that this justifies the meritocracy, that we should say, instead of these people being corrupt, we should just take people in on merit, because they want to protect their, affirmative action things, which are also, which also don't work. They let kids into these schools where they can't make it, especially in the sciences. They let them into engineering schools where they're going to fail. It's much better for people who can't make these big schools to go into engineering schools where they can succeed, because you'll get hired if you get through the program, whereas if you drop out, you won't. And if you come out and you're not very good at what you haven't learned anything because you couldn't keep up, then you're just not going to be a very good engineer. These things don't help anybody. Meritocracy, though I have a broad idea of what meritocracy means, it might be harder to fight your way out of a slum school than it is to get through a private school. I can understand that. That's not a problem. But letting people in because their skin is a certain color, because they're a certain sex, those are the kinds of things that I think hurt people just as much as this kind of fraud. I think that it speaks to this idea that the thing itself, getting the thing itself, is what makes it important, instead of what you're going to get out of that thing, that these things have no point, that parenting has no point. I wouldn't tell my kid, if my kid were black, I wouldn't tell him, you got to get in because you're black, we'll use that. I mean, it's ridiculous. Once they set those systems up, of course, parents will use them. You can't blame parents for doing that. But any system that gets in the way of some sort of meritocracy is going to lead to corruption of some sort. It may not be corruption like this, but this is about credentialism and how tough it is to get these credentials and how important they are and how much they raise your pay. I mean, if there were no food, we'd all be fighting, like in Venezuela, because of socialism, we'd all be fighting each other for food. If credentials are hard to come by and they're valuable, then they're going to fight people. People are going to fight over credentials, and they're going to do it any way they can. Let's let Lelling talk a little bit more about some of these athletic scams, because one of the ways they did this was not just cheating on the test, but pretending these kids had athletic abilities that they didn't have. This is cut 6, I guess.
Singer worked with the parents to fabricate impressive athletic profiles for their kids, including fake athletic credentials or honors, or fake participation in elite club teams. In many instances, Singer helped parents take staged photographs of their children engaged in particular sports. Other times, Singer and his associates used stock photos that they pulled off the internet, sometimes photoshopping the face of the child onto the picture of the athlete and submitting it in support of the applications for these children to elite schools. In one example, the head women's soccer coach at Yale, in exchange for $400,000, accepted an applicant as a recruit for the Yale women's team despite knowing that the applicant did not even play competitive soccer.
It's kind of amazing, sticking the kids' heads. I can see my kid calling me up. How come you didn't do that for me? You didn't stick my head on an athlete's body. You know, it is truly amazing. It is truly amazing. It always gets me. Corruption always gets me when I pause for a minute and just imagine the mindset of the person doing the corruption. I mean, Felicity Huffman, William Macy, these are people who are privileged in more than just an accidental way. These are tremendously talented people, so they're privileged in that way. They're blessed. Let's not call it privilege. They're blessed with talent, and they're blessed with the fact that they succeeded, whether it was the work ethos. Anybody who ever succeeds in the arts, and I have done this, you know there's some luck involved. You know there's timing involved, luck, something comes along. And yes, it's true that the people who really have talent, they do tend to rise over time, but some of them have other problems, like they're not appealing, they're not attractive, they're not there at the right time, in the right place. You know, these are really lucky people. And what was it? What was going through their minds when they thought, oh yeah, we'll fake this thing? And obviously these credentials have become too important. Before getting on, I mean, when you think about the big ideas here, and like I said, it's very tempting to just go after things that you don't like and say that's the big idea. But the one thing you can say that is true of this beyond question is that it certainly these headlines play into the idea that the elites are rigging the system. You know who got this right? Take one guess who said something true about this. Go ahead, one. I dare you. You'll never get it right. Don Lemon hit this on the nose. Here is a quick cut of Don Lemon. This is before he gets off into his own thing and starts saying ridiculous stuff. But here is a moment when it's like a stopped clock is right twice a day. Here is a moment when Don Lemon hits it right out of the park.
It is shameful. Shameful that this is in America. This is an America that can be deeply unfair, where hard work doesn't necessarily pay off, where if you have money, you can buy anything, because just about everything is for sale, including integrity, for sale. Where a whole lot of people have real good reason to believe the system is rigged against them. Listen, this is what Donald Trump tapped into. And in a lot of ways, guess what? He was right.
I'd like to just play that in his dreams at night. Donald Trump was right. Donald Trump was certainly playing into a perception that people have that the system is rigged. And you know, on the conservative side, you say, well, this means that the elites are, want to take over everything and they want to take, but it works both ways. It works for both the right and the left. But when you talk about the system being rigged, there's another story going around that's kind of not getting any play for some strange reason. The Washington Examiner reporting on some transcripts from FBI lawyer Lisa Page. Remember, Page and Strzok, the lovers who wanted to create some way of getting at Donald Trump and were basically run out of the FBI system because of all their bias against Trump. Newly released transcript from Page's private testimony, this is from the Washington Examiner, in front of a joint task force of the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees in July 2018, sheds new light on the internal discussions about an investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails. This goes back to the FBI's mid-year exam investigation. She basically told them, Page told the committee that the FBI did not blow over the idea of charging Hillary Clinton with gross negligence. Responding to a question from John Ratcliffe, the Republican from Texas, Page testified the FBI, including James Comey, believed Clinton may have committed gross negligence. She said, in fact, the director, Comey, because on his face it did seem, well, maybe there was a potential here for this to be the charge. And we had multiple conversations with the Justice Department about charging gross negligence, but the Department of Justice put a stop to that. The Justice Department's assessment was that it was both constitutionally vague, so that they did not actually feel that they could permissibly bring that charge. In other words, they kept saying, maybe we should charge Hillary Clinton with gross negligence, and the DOJ, Loretta Lynch, the DOJ kept saying, no, no, no. Now, this is a president, Barack Obama, who's, as I've said a million times, whose Attorney General Eric Holder said, I am his wingman. He is my boy. That's what she said. I've got to be there to protect my boy. Loretta Lynch, I used to call her, I can't remember what I used to call her, casually corrupt or casually sinister Attorney General Loretta Lynch. She was obviously working for the president to do the president's bidding. They talk about this. How many stories have you read? How many stories have there been about what Trump might do? He might fire Mueller. He might get in the way. He might obstruct justice. All these stories. But we know they did this with Hillary Clinton. We know she was guilty of gross negligence. And when we see that somebody gets off because she's an elite, because she's powerful, because she's well connected, when a guy in the Navy who accidentally takes a picture home that he took goes to prison, and you and I would go to prison for 10 years. When we see that, we start to think, well, wait a minute, what is going on here? The problem with this, okay, is Don Lemon is right. It not only contributes to the rise of a guy like Donald Trump, who says the system is rigged, vote for me, and I will be your guy in the White House. Okay, and he has been in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, he has spoken for the people who elected him. He has tried to keep faith with the people who elected him. But it also accounts for somebody like Alexandria Occasional-Cortex. It also accounts for this numbskull socialist who rises up. The socialists, the communists, and to me, they're all the same. They always take advantage of corruption. This happened in China during the Chinese Communist Revolution. The people who were in place were corrupt. And when the people are corrupt, the system that they represent is completely disgraced. And so if you want to be free, if you want people to have freedom, if you want them to support capitalism, it's no good to have a corrupt system. It's no good when the market crashes in 2008 because of corruption, both by the left in terms of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and in terms of Wall Street and business. And they both say the same thing. Let the government give us money. Let the government bail us out. Everybody was saying it's the left and the right. Give money to people who can't afford to pay back their loans. And the Wall Street people were saying, give us money because we're too big to fail. When people see that, when they see that the game is rigged, it means that the guy who comes along who is honest in what he's saying, maybe because he's a fanatic. That's the thing about the socialists and communists. They tend to be fanatics, but they're honest in the moment. Before they get power, they're honest. They're saying, this is what we want to do. We want to tax the rich 90% or whatever it is. We want to take away your freedom, but we'll do it right because the way it's happening now doesn't work. Corruption, when the elite are corrupt, when they don't deserve the things that they have, you can't defend the system and you can talk theoretically all you want about capitalism, but if people see it's not working for them, they're going to go for something else. You can talk all you want about globalism. They can sit around at the National Review and say globalism, free trade. If you're out of work and Felicity Huffman is buying her kid's way into a school you can't go to, what does globalism mean to you? What does free trade mean to you? What does capitalism mean to you? This kind of corruption, good for the FBI. At least, the FBI at the top level has been as corrupted as anybody, but good for the agents who, as I've always said, are working to just trying to do their job. It really is interesting. Nancy Pelosi, the other day had this interview in the Washington Post where she said, I'm about to make news. I'm not for impeachment. And she said, impeachment is so divisive to the country that unless there's something so compelling and overwhelming and bipartisan, I don't think we should go down that path because it divides the country. And he, meaning Donald Trump, is just not worth it. So immediately, some of the people on the right reacted just the same way that some of the people on the left reacted just the same way that we reacted on the right when John Boehner said he wasn't going to impeach Obama. They said, we on the right said, wait a minute, then he can do anything he wants. And the people on the left are saying this now, and a lot of the people on the left are pushing back against what Pelosi said. Here is Al Green from Texas and AOC. This is a Fox compilation.
I intend to bring impeachment to a vote, and I will do so because the president has been acknowledged by leaders and others that he is not fit to hold the office.
I think this is a conversation in the caucus, and I know a lot of members in the caucus have a different opinion, but that's why we caucus.
See, so everybody can see the political thing that's going on here. They can see that Pelosi and the wiser, older heads in the party don't want a repeat of the Clinton impeachment debacle where the people felt that Clinton had done wrong, but they felt that the Republicans overstepped their bounds. And they also don't want to bring back the McGovern debacle. Remember when Nixon was elected, the left overreacted and they put this leftist McGovern in place, and he was wiped off the map in the elections, and that's what they're afraid of. But the other thing is Pelosi is losing control of her party. and she's fighting to get it back. She's laying down the law, because if they're not going to impeach virtually everything they've been doing, all these investigations, all these subpoenas they're sending out, all these things where they're sending out like kind of blanket subpoenas without any kind of crime attached to them, all of that is exposed for the thing that it is. But Pelosi is willing to go there because she wants to hold on to the party. And the party is going, I saw a guy on TV the other day saying, the party has actually gotten more moderate. A lot of moderates got elected in 2018 to the Democrat Party. It's not true. The moderates got elected instead of the blue dogs. The blue dogs are the conservative Democrats, or the supposedly conservative Democrats. The moderates are to the left of them, and then to the left of them are the people like occasional Cortex. So they've actually become more and more radical. And that's because we're divided, so divided like this, with guys like Trump and people like AOC, who in a lot of ways, I like what Trump is doing, but in terms of like not knowing what's going on, AOC and Trump are a lot the same in that regard. And we're turning to these people because the people we trusted to be the elites, the people who said they were the experts, have failed and have shown themselves to be corrupt and have shown themselves not to care about the actual lives of the people going on. This is the bad thing about this. The individual parenting is unbelievable to me. The individual corruption is gobsmacking. It just makes you blink that people with so much privilege, so much money, actually stoop to doing this in front of their kids, to their kids. It's a horrible thing. But more than anything, it shows us an elite class that has lost the plot of what they're supposed to do. Because being an elite, just like being a parent, just like having a job, just like all the things that we do, going to school, being an elite has a point. It has a purpose. If you're not fulfilling that purpose, you're just wasting space. Tonight, tune in to our next episode of Daily Wire Backstage, the March Madness edition. Daily Wire God King Jeremy Boring, Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, and me. We'll all be talking about politics, culture, and providing the answers to life's most challenging questions. Oh, they didn't tell me there were going to be life's challenging questions. Jeez. As always, I would have studied. As always, Daily Wire subscribers get to ask the questions, so make sure to subscribe today. Also, that gets you into the mailbag, gets you all the shows. So stop, please. I can't stand it anymore. We'll have the mailbag coming up, but first I gotta say goodbye. I had a night like that. I can't talk about it. This reminds me of a night I had once. I gotta say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube. Come over to dailywire.com and watch the rest of the show.